Hey, everybody. Welcome. It is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I am Dana. Joining me is Lisa and Sonia, and Kate will be joining us here in just a couple of minutes. So this show, it's an interesting one. We're going to talk a lot about Deshaun Watson today, but we're going to talk about the thoughts and the feelings surrounding him coming back into the NFL. I mean, he was never really out, but he didn't play last year. And we are going to talk about his contract and what that means for contracts in the future, for teams trying to sign quarterbacks in the future, teams who have quarterbacks with contracts coming up. What all of this means. We're going to talk about the PR side of it a little bit. Like I said, Kate's going to join us in just a couple of minutes to go over that. At least I hope she is. She said she was. And then I want to talk a little bit more about some of their surprise free agent signings. There's a couple that really caught my eye in the last few days. And let's admit, there was that first wave that was kind of busy, but really it was that second wave that had a lot of surprises in it. So we're going to talk about that too here in just a few minutes. Like I said, joining me is Lisa and Sonia. Lisa, how's your week been? Lisa, can you not hear me?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said, how's your week been?
Yeah, I heard Lisa Howland.
That's okay.
Oh, it was good. It was good. Very, very good.
This is what happens when Lisa buys a farm. She goes to play with her goats and loses her mind. That's okay. We love it. So
she loves her goats.
For sure. Joining us also is Sonia. Sonia, this is going to have a lot of impact on your team coming up here in the next couple of years, these contracts. Mm-hmm. But I do want to talk to you while we wait for Kate to join us. I want to talk to you for just a minute.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield during our podcast and the backlash on this, but he wasn't the only quarterback that got a little shifting going on. We had Atlanta had got, traded Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts. Mm-hmm. But it brought up a lot of conversations about why some of these quarterbacks that are sitting out there, mainly Baker, Jimmy Garoppolo, a couple of the others, and the Lions have been brought up quite a bit. And there was a quote that I saw that I thought of you when I saw it. It's like, do you really think either one of them could do better than what Jared Goff has done? I want to know from you. Do you think any of the quarterbacks sitting out there now, Baker, Jimmy, any of them, hell, Fitzpatrick, do you think that they could do better than what Goff is doing for the Lions? Or do you think that they should sit with him?
I honestly don't think anybody out there could be better than Goff right now. And either way you slice it, that person, let's say they did bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jimmy Garoppolo, that person again is just going to be a stopgap, just like Jared Goff is. So why bring in another stopgap unless it might be a little bit cheaper or something like that? But overall, why change? Let's just keep it where we're going. If we can't find anything that's truly a massive upgrade, then let's just leave it with Jared Goff, because I don't think, while he has had a kind of up and down season last season, he was coming on towards the end, and I don't think that we need to not relive, but I don't think we need to step back and start over again with somebody else.
Yeah. I agree. I think you'd just be shifting one for the other. Yeah. And so why not stay with the guy who already knows the system? I do find that to be very true. But I thought of you as soon as I saw that, because to be honest with you, there was a lot of people making fun of Jared Goff for a long time, but now
for sure.
Maybe not so much better anywhere else. All right. So I
bet Kate's eating cheesesteaks.
Yeah, that's true. Is Kate eating cheesesteaks? We would be able to in our t-shirts, Lisa, if we had them.
I know. I found them. I got them out. Got them ready to go.
We are talking about our sponsor of our podcast, Donkey's Cheesesteaks up in New Jersey. They have been sponsoring our podcast all season. And they're great friends of the show, and we appreciate them so very much. All right, guys. So Kate just texted me. She's almost on her way. She had a little bit of a family bump that she had to get to, so she'll be here soon. So let's go ahead and start talking about this, because Kate's going to take up a good chunk of the time, being a Cleveland Browns fan. We'll see. So let's start here. So when I first heard this news, I was shocked because he had said the Browns were out. Watson was like, I'm not going to the Browns, whatever. And then I heard the money and I'm like, oh, yeah, they bought him off. So great. Good for them. That's what they wanted to do. You go right ahead. But what was your first reaction, Lisa, when you first heard Deshaun Watson was going to be traded and he was going to the Browns? What was your first reaction?
I didn't know what to say. I'll be very honest. I was torn because if I have to divide this in half, to be very honest with you, because it's a subject that, as all of us know, we have to tread lightly on, because I'm scared to say kind of what I truly feel, but then I'm scared to say what I know people don't want to hear. So it's so hard right now, because if I split it in half and I said, as Deshaun Watson, as a football player, take all the allegations away, I think he's better than Baker Mayfield. I think it was a great signing, if that's the deal. First round picks aren't guarantees. So if you can grab this guy, he's only 25 years old. He's a franchise guy, proven. Now bring in all the off-field stuff. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to post it. I don't know how my true feelings about it. You know,
That's
everybody
fair.
will just jump
Lisa,
on
I
it.
think that's totally
I
fair.
don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. I'm scared to say. You know, I know he's innocent. No charges were brought. It doesn't make him totally innocent. No. Right. And I don't know how to divide that. I don't know how to separate that, because you have so many opinions and you get attacked for whatever you say.
Yeah. No matter what side you're on.
If I have to take no matter what side, as a woman, you know, I hope those women find justice. I hope they do. If he truly did that, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how to address it, because I'm scared to say it. But I'll just say it as an NFL person that has followed quarterbacks my entire life. It's a hell of a pickup for the Cleveland Browns, and he's a hell of a football player. That's all I can say.
And Lisa, you know what? I think there's a lot of people. I think that you're there with at the same spot as a lot of people are. Whereas you can say you get that football side of it, but you get the other side of it too. And as a football fan, you get tugged and pulled. As a woman, you get tugged and pulled. I think a lot of people are there. You know, I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. And I don't think it's surprising. I think a lot of people are there. Sonia, Kate is here. We're going to get to Kate last, because she's the one who's got the real opinions on this. But Sonia, what did you think when you first heard the news that Deshaun Watson was going to Cleveland?
I first thought, I mean, okay, I guess they got their guy. That's who they wanted. That's who they gave up Baker for. So yay, they got their guy. But then when I saw the contract amount, I was blown away. I think that's probably
we're going to talk about that money.
Yeah. That wow, I was just blown away by that. And then, you know, the social woman side of it, you know, the allegation part of it, I'm kind of like Lisa. I feel both ways. And, you know, I've had talks with Greg about this type of thing, and he's just kind of like, I don't understand it. How can you as a woman be a football fan? And just kind of, you know, I don't know. But biggest thing was that I was just blown away by the size of the amount of the contract.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was probably the thing. And I'm still kind of processing my feelings on, you know, the allegations and things like that. But the thing that I can think right now is, wow, what a contract.
I'm just going to say, when I first heard it, I was like I told you, I was shocked, because we thought that the Browns were out and that he was going to end up with the Saints or the Panthers. Two teams that were much more quarterback desperate, I felt, than the Browns were. But apparently I was wrong, but that's what I thought. And then I was assuming in my head he still won't play next year, that the NFL will come in and they will go ahead and they will, you know, suspend him and he won't play next year, and they'll let the rest of these the civil suits go through, and we'll get all that figured out before he touches the football on a field again. And then I read that contract, and this is where my logical side of me lost it, was when I saw that the Cleveland Browns had arranged his contract so he would only lose $1 million if he was suspended for the year. And I lost my brain. I'm not going to lie. My entire opinion completely flipped. I was utterly disgusted in the Cleveland Browns. Sorry, Kate. And I could not believe that they were not only bringing him in with all this still sitting out there, yet he didn't get charged criminally. That means nothing. We all know that. But that then they made his contract so he basically could coast for a year if he got. My entire opinion of the situation changed. I'm not going to lie. I have a very strong opinion about it now. So try to take breaths, and I try to look at it as a fan's point of view. If this were Seattle, if this was Miami, if this was Detroit, how would I reconcile this? And literally, I honestly thought I would have to be done with that team until he was gone. I honestly, now that's easy for me to say because it's not my problem now, right? It's not mine. So it's easy for me to say that in hindsight. But at the same time, holy shit, this is big. Like this is a PR nightmare, which to me I would have, and secondly, what kind of fan am I if I can support this? Before I switch it over to you, Kate, because I'm going to pick your brain. I want to think he's not the first person that had allegations. He's not the first person that's been charged, whatever. I get that before we get hammered with that in comments. But what I think the difference here is, I hate to say severity, because one is as bad as 22, but it's not. It just feels different. It feels very, very different. So that's where I'm sitting right now. As I was logically going through it until I saw that contract flip my whole switch. So, Kate, you are our Browns fan. I have seen online there's a whole fan website that they took their website down. They got rid of it. They are done. And kudos and respect to him because he got a lot of crap online for it. And there's a lot of Browns fans who are like, well, you do what you got to do to win. Where do you sit with this, Kate? How are you feeling about it? How are you, run us through it.
So it changes every day.
Fair.
My unhappiness gets worse every day because I find out more things. So let's go with two pieces, right? Okay, we're going to put the character issue and the allegations aside. Let's just talk about the football. Mm-hmm. We lost Odell Beckham Jr. this year. He wanted to leave. We let him go. We then released Jarvis Landry. We got, and I still say the Browns then made a trade, got Amari Cooper. They let Austin Hooper go, the tight end. Then they franchise tagged David Njoku. So as they're doing all that, our thoughts as fans are they're going after young wide receivers in the draft. We picked 13th to help Baker, and maybe they'll do something else in free agency. Then we start to hear the rumors that they're going after Watson. And as far as I'm aware, Watson was very clear. He wanted to play somewhere warm and he wanted to play somewhere with the dome. We don't have either of those things in Cleveland, which is why if you wanted him, you had to go pay big for him. So they paid big for him, $230 million over 5 years. Every penny of that is guaranteed. That is more money than Patrick Mahomes makes by $90 million, and Pat Mahomes has a ring. And you're giving that money to a man who has not taken a snap in a game since January 3rd of 2021. That's 443 days ago. And that's assuming that if he is in football shape and he can play, that he can play week one. And we all know he's not going to play week one. Big Ben didn't have nearly the allegations that Deshaun Watson has, and he sat out 6 weeks. So he's going to sit out 6 weeks. Now I've got Baker Mayfield. I've got Baker Mayfield, who's now his feelings are hurt and he's done and he wants to be traded. I get it. His contract his agent did him no favors because his rookie contract was built such that he's guaranteed $18 million in his last year, which is a cap hit. So now you've got to trade someone that you know you're only getting for 1 year and it's going to cost you $18 million, and which is why there are only a couple teams left. He may end up in Seattle. After all the chips fall, I don't know where he's going to end up. The strangest thing from the last 2 weeks for me is that we traded Case Keenum to the Buffalo Bills and we picked up Jacoby Brissett. Case Keenum was in Minnesota with Kevin Stefanski. He understands the offense. You've gotten rid of half of your offensive playmakers. You've gotten rid of, in effect, your quarterback and your backup quarterback. You're bringing in new people. You're now bringing in a new quarterback. We have to start all over again. We have to learn everything from scratch. But in OTAs, your starter is and at $230 million, he's the starter. There is no competition. There is no conversation. Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He's now going to be fighting time to get reps with Jacoby Brissett, who's going to have to play week 1 through whatever during the suspension. So from a football standpoint, I don't understand what they're doing. I didn't think last year was a horrible year for this team, a horrendous year for this team when you look at what the expectations were going into the year and what ended up happening. The only thing that I predicted at the beginning of the year that happened is that Odell Beckham Jr. would get himself a Super Bowl ring this year. Didn't know it would be with LA. I thought it would be here. The injury to Baker, not just the injury to Baker, but the way the coaching staff and the front office handled that injury set the tone and ruined the rest of the year. He should have never been allowed back in after the Thursday night game against Denver. Case Keenum started it. Baker was hurt at that point, but he wasn't injured. The very next game is when the injury got severe enough that he was going to require surgery. And then he still played on that for the rest of the year. And when the coaches are like, how are you doing? Are you ready to go? And he's like, yeah, put me in, coach. Somebody should have been the grown-up in the room and sat his ass down until he was better, because he hurt the team by playing with that injury.
Exactly.
And it could have healed in 5 to 6 weeks. What's his name had the same injury, had surgery, and was back for the playoffs. I can't think of his name.
It's okay.
Was it Gronk? One of them. It was his non-throwing arm. He could have been out 6 weeks. He could have avoided the surgery if he hadn't gotten injured a second time. Could have avoided the injury. That was a weak enough section of our schedule that even going 3-3 with Keenum, we would have still been able to make a playoff run. So last year was a whole combination of things. But as a result, you've got Njoku that you don't want to give him money for because you don't know what he's good for or what he's worth or what he's really able to do. So they franchise tagged him. You've got a whole mess on offense, and now you're bringing in someone who's not going to be able to play right away. I wish and hope and pray that if Goodell is going to suspend him, he makes the decision and does it soon, just so we know what we're dealing with, because the entire summer, OTAs, training camp, everything is going to be colored by how many reps is Jacoby Brissett going to get to learn the offense, and how many is Deshaun going to get, and who are we actually going to see week 1?
Yeah.
So from a football standpoint, I don't get it. I would like to say it's not my money.
Let's stop there before we go on.
Jimmy can spend whatever money Jimmy wants to spend. That's Jimmy Haslam's money. At the same time, there's a salary cap. And you just gave a whole lot of my salary cap to one player, which limits the Browns' ability to pick up other people in free agency. So while it's not my money, it does affect my salary cap. Overpaying like this limits what we can do now based on salary cap.
Agreed.
25%. He will have 25% of your salary cap next year.
In a man who hasn't taken a snap in over a year.
And probably won't. I mean, next year, it's a $1 million hit. They did that, but overall, over the course of his contract, he will take 25% of your cap space. Because he's not going to want to stick there. We're going to have that conversation after the rest of this conversation, because it's not just him that affects, it's quarterbers around the league. So we're going to talk about that for sure.
Yep.
I find it fascinating. You brought up a great point. And this is fascinating to me, is why the hell would you get rid of Case Keenum? I was so baffled by that. The one guy who could come in and maybe play the year for you, because you're going to probably need him to play a year, if not half a season, a whole year. And so, because remember, all those other guys, Ben, Ezekiel Elliott, all those guys, they got 6 games and there was nothing there. So I think there'll be more here. And I think,
and it was one woman.
Yeah.
With Zeke, it was 1. With Ben, it was 2. It was one.
So,
This is
but
different.
I just think that the NFL has to do something about this because the teams didn't do something about it. So yes, it puts you very precariously in an interesting football position. And yet all people can talk about is he's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. Well, quarterbacks, you know how I feel about him anyway, Lisa. Right.
He was. I know what he is now.
I already said it. I think he's a great quarterback. I mean, I'll go there, because I do.
He is.
It's the other stuff, and the whole way the NFL does, and we all know that, it's just not going to change. I don't care how many women the NFL hire, how many women they put in the front office. None of this is ever going to change. I mean, you got a guy that bet on his own team that basically wasn't even playing in the game, and he got a year suspension. You got a guy that practically raped 22 women, and he got a freaking $650 million contract. So it's not going to change. It never will.
You're absolutely
It's protect the shield, and that's what it's all about.
But I don't even know if it's the shield anymore.
There,
It's protect the teams now. I swear to God, because that's what I mean by the shield has to come down and do something. They're the ones that have to make a stand here because legally no one did. And we can argue that forever, but unless you have a legal degree, don't come at me. But you can argue that the legal system didn't do anything. You can argue that the teams didn't do anything. So now the shield has to do something. It'll be interesting. All right. Now, Sonia, do you have anything to add to that? Sorry, I don't want to ignore you.
Oh, no, that's okay. I agree. Something needs to happen. What will it be? Don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Don't know. So, Kate, let's look at the other side of this. Your team, I always say, it's not like the Browns were Dan Snyder's team, which is totally rude of me. And I get that. But, you kind of expect stuff out of Snyder that way. This shocked me coming from the Cleveland Browns, knowing how important their fan base is to them. And they know how big of a female fan base they have. So let's look at that aspect of that. How do you expect them to, because that statement they released was crap. Total
Absolute crap.
They've got
and Dee Haslam, Jimmy's wife Dee, is very involved with the team. There was a time, and we talked about it on this podcast, when we thought that Jimmy's business issues with Pilot Flying J were going to require him to step away from football, the same as we saw with the DeBartolo family and the 49ers, and that Dee was positioning to take over running the Browns if anything happened with the federal charges that he was looking at with Pilot Flying J. Dee is very involved with the team, with what goes on with the community, with women's issues. And I have guys on Twitter telling me, well, it must be okay because Dee signed off on it. Dee must have signed off on it. I don't know that. Maybe she did. I don't know that. There's a few things I do know. If you are a female massage therapist in the city of Cleveland and you get a phone call to do a treatment for Deshaun Watson, the correct answer is no, thank you. And then you hang up the phone.
Well, they're not going to say the
period.
They're going to say something else.
If he walks into my massage therapy room, I'm walking him back out. There have been, aside from the 9 cases that went to the grand jury, and we will never know what evidence was presented there. They declined to press charges on 9. There are 22 that are going into civil, that are pressing civil suits. There are multiples of more who have declined to go after him because they just don't want to deal with it for whatever reason. There were a couple that actually did interviews with the New York Times when this was all going down a while ago. And I was listening to the woman who wrote the articles today and how she vetted what the stories that she got from one of the women in particular, who immediately after the session with him called the owner of the place she worked and 2 of her friends and is like, it was uncomfortable. He was taking his towel off. He was waggling his stuff in my direction. He was saying all these things. I kept telling him, you're making me uncomfortable. This is inappropriate. Like, she told people about this behavior right after it happened. We have Kareem Hunt here in Cleveland. Kansas City let him go for a video of an altercation that he got into with the female. And I took that very hard. And I said, there better be rules. There better be regulations. There is no second chance. There is none of that. And for the 3 years that we've had him, he has been fine. There has been nothing else. There has been no other problems. I live in a world where one time can be like an accident. One incident can be a one-time thing. You can learn from that. I don't know what the number is that makes it a habit and a problem, but I am damn sure it is less than 22. 22 women. I have 4 daughters. I can't get them to agree on what to put on pizza. You're going to tell me 22 women agreed on false allegations? I'm not going to believe it. I'm not. I believe these women. And I think, I'm going to get emotional. What I struggle with as a woman and as a football fan is, and maybe it's just as a woman in general, is that men, I shouldn't say men, people who have never been assaulted emotionally, physically, sexually, do not understand how much, as a victim, you second guess yourself. Maybe this isn't what I think it was. Maybe he didn't say what I think he did. Maybe I did something to make him think it was okay. They don't understand how difficult it is to say no. Consent is a huge thing in the case for a lot of these women. Deshaun's camp was saying that there was sexual contact with some of them that they consented to. When you're in a position of authority over someone, when you're a high-paid professional going to a room with someone to do a job and they feel like they don't have a choice, they're not consenting. And it's so hard to explain the concept of actual consent with people who've never been in a position where their choice was taken from them and they didn't feel that there was anything they could do. And that's where we're at with this. I think this is a lot of, and it's men and women that I've heard from who don't believe, or why wouldn't they do this or why wouldn't they do that? And they're blaming the victim because they don't understand what it's like to feel powerless and to feel like you don't have a choice. And these women clearly felt like they didn't have a choice and they were powerless. And I'm hoping that while I figure out how to maintain my fandom and I figure out how to respect the coaches and the front office and the owners of a team who put winning in front of everything else, that they find some way to open up the conversation to let people understand what it's like to be to be the victim of misconduct, of assault, of even when it's verbal, even when it's emotional, to just start having more of these conversations, because too many people just don't understand.
I don't know how they do that with Deshaun Watson on the roster. I don't know how they can. And they said, oh, he's going to do stuff in the community. I will say this. This was great. I read this today. This was wonderful. The Cleveland Crisis Rape Center has had over 1,700 new donations. And most of them were $22, which yes. I found, it's like, if you have to find a silver lining, this is a good thing. This is, that there's going to be lots of help there. But I think that what is interesting here is this is something that the team seemed so rabid to get him. They gave him a ridiculous contract. They gave him, 6 ways to Sunday to get out, and not be, have to pay a lot of money if he gets suspended and all this other stuff. They were so rabid. They didn't stop to think, now what do we do? Yeah. Now we've got him. Oh, we better release something. I'd be real curious to find out if the coaches had any say in this at all. Did the rest of the team have any say in this at all? Because you can't tell me that there's not players on that team who have had a wife, a mother, a girlfriend who's been attacked, and they're going to have to sit with this quarterback. Or do they not care? Is it truly just winning that matters? I struggle with this.
Yeah. I can tell you if Jarvis Landry was still on this team, he would not be okay with it. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that. I can tell you that there are a lot of rumors circulating that Baker was more of a problem in the locker room than we were aware of, and that the coaches were aware that they were going to go after Deshaun. It takes me back again to the precedent they set when we got Kareem Hunt. There were rules put in place. There were things put in place. He apologized up one way and down the other profusely and repeatedly. And to this day, if you ask him a question about that, he was like, I was absolutely wrong. It doesn't matter if she provoked me. I shouldn't have pushed her. Like, he owns every bit of his responsibility in that. And to this point, Deshaun Watson has not.
No.
And I can understand, because I think this is a topic we've talked about. What you see a lot with professional athletes is from the age of what, 12, 13, 14, the minute somebody finds out they're good with a football, a baseball, a basketball, they don't hear the word no anymore. And you have raised a generation of young men who are making a lot of money who don't understand the concept that no means no, because no one tells them no. So there's the part of me where I could understand that if every single one of these things happened the way it did, that on some level, Deshaun really doesn't think he did anything wrong, because it's not anything anyone has ever told him was bad behavior. It's a social conditioning, and it's not just him. You can go to Ben, you can go to Zeke, you can go to any of these athletes. I'm going to leave Greg Hardy out of this conversation because that's a piece of crap that I never want to discuss again, and that's a whole different ball of crap that was allowed to continue to play in the NFL. But I still think, we talk sometimes, people like to talk about how these athletes get out of college and they didn't really get an education because we just pushed them through so they could play football or whatever. We do them a disservice in that respect, but I think we also do them a disservice from a socialization standpoint. We don't hold them accountable for things that other men are held accountable for. And for some of them, circling back to what you said, Dana, so many of the young men that I talked to at the combine were raised by single mothers. I'm like, I can't imagine you ever doing anything like some of these guys have done, because you've got a strong woman in your life who would have raised you to understand that this is not behavior that's okay. They're gonna need to do something from a PR standpoint. And I think maybe they're waiting till they find out about the suspension, because if he gets a year, they're not going to do it until next year.
They're probably not going to do anything.
Well,
And maybe we'll forget about it.
Well, didn't they that one time? Remember, we got bombarded with all the players speaking up. I don't know if it was the Me Too movement or just say no. Remember that after some of the allegations with the Ray Rice came back and abusing women, and all these football players took to the TV.
There were commercials, and
there were commercials after commercials. I saw Ray Lewis do it. No means no. Abusing women is not okay. Where is all that now? That's what I'm saying. There's no accountability being held by the NFL. There's no accountability.
At the same time, we are all women who love football, and we all know the NFL doesn't give a crap about us.
Right.
They don't. Can we talk about the purse policy?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? The only thing in my purse was all my husband's crap that he gave me as we were walking into the stadium. I didn't take a purse to a game.
No. I mean, and that's just the thing. They don't care, and you've got this, but then you also have the cesspool that is going on in Washington. And that, I mean, and until you check that, until you don't allow Dan Snyder to allow his own people to investigate, I mean, where there's smoke, there's a hell of a fire going on there. And until that is taken care of and looked at responsibly, I mean, they don't care. And I mean, in some respects, you just got to be okay with it. I think if you're going to be a female fan,
we don't have a choice. We either not watch football or
we
do.
But
we do technically, but
they know we're not going to not watch. That's the bottom line. If we found some way to link all the female fans together and to get them to boycott a game just one weekend, that no women would go to a game, I think that would send a message. I just don't think we can do it.
Here's what's interesting to me about this. Here, Big Red put this up here on our chat. I kind of love this. He's like, my thoughts are this: will other players think the same as ownership, and will that show up during a game? What he means, I think, is that
one of those big old linemen's missing a block.
One of those big old linemen's going to be like, and here is this. I would love to think so. I completely believe that retribution in football is true. I've seen it. We all know what happens, right?
Yes.
And so that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting when Deshaun Watson has to walk into an away stadium. What's going to happen when he's introduced at away stadium?
I mean, he's going to get booed. We all know that.
Well, yeah, but I'm just wondering. I'm wondering what that backlash.
We go check the sales of the number 22 Browns jerseys.
Yeah, there are quite a few. That is true. So I find it's interesting. I think my hope is that Roger Goodell, and I know lots of people don't like him. I get that, but my hope is Roger Goodell looks at this big picture and says, okay, like I said before, we have to do something about this. because no one else has done anything about this. And so will he let him play? Of course. There's no legal reason. They are not the judge and jury. They cannot legally suspend him. They would turn around and get, for life. They can't ban him for life. I just can't get over Calvin Ridley getting banned for a year, suspended for a year over a $1,500 bet, but we're going to let Deshaun Watson play. It's illogical to me. So that's the stuff that has to be fixed at the Shield. Is we need to get some balance in there. I get that gambling's a big deal. We can't have players bail, that sort of thing. But what I'm saying,
but yet we have gambling, we have gambling sponsors for the NFL.
I know. And so, yes, Evan Hill, he is someone I do a podcast with, the Hawk Blogger podcast for the Seahawks. He was very upset at the idea of Seattle possibly bringing in Deshaun Watson and going after that.
Right.
He said flat out, I will not judge a single person if they decide to switch teams over this. And I agreed with him completely. I'm like, I won't switch allegiances. I will still do my reportings. I'll do NFC West, AFC West, like I always do, but I will not be able to cheer for that team. That team will not get $1 of my money for now. And that's the only way I could think of myself and I protesting. So it'll be interesting. I think that we're going to have to, I think you're right, Kate. We got to play this out a little bit and see what happens. And then it'll come down to gut check time. It will. And that's real tough because, like I said at the beginning of the show, other players have done things like this. This just feels different.
I was just going to say, is it the number? I mean, because you look at somebody like, I don't know, Jameis. You look at Joe Mixon. I mean, these are people. Joe Mixon knocked out a girl in college. I mean, granted, yes, it was college.
Difference, there's video.
And there's video. Mm-hmm. And so, what?
For me, it's a combination of numbers. It's 22 and 230 million. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not 22 and he's an $18 million a year player. It's 22 and 230 million. The nice thing is there's another team in Ohio that's actually pretty good right now and is more than happy to accept fans. And their colors are close enough that most of our orange gear works. So the Bengals are picking up fans left and right from people who are like, you know what, I'm done with the Browns. Yeah.
But I have a question. Do you think this sets women back of coming forward? Because you have 22 women that came forward and nothing happened. Let's suppose he still get, like Dana said, he's only going to lose $1 million. He's still getting all that other money guaranteed. Does this in turn, do women look at that like, why even bother reporting this? Nothing's going to get done about it. I mean, so does it set women back?
Yes.
I think that's always going to be the case. I mean, especially if it's an athlete. I mean, you look at the rapist at Stanford, Rock, I mean.
Oh, the swimmer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the swimmer. Nothing happened.
Right.
He just got a slap on the wrist. I mean, honestly,
and that's go ahead.
A lot. It's a lot.
I think that's why we need to gut check ourselves at this point. I really think we do. All right. So if anyone didn't know, we all completely agree on all of this, just so you know. But all right. So let's talk about this numbers, because I do want to talk about this contract and the effect that it has on the rest of the league, because this is huge. This is a ripple effect that we are going to see cause a lot of teams a lot of problems, right? So Deshaun Watson, 5 years, fully guaranteed. Where else did you get fully guaranteed? Baseball. That was it. I mean, we don't do fully guaranteed. Nothing's fully guaranteed in the NFL, right? So fully guaranteed, $230 million. Yearly, it works out to $44 million a year. So just $4 million less than actually Aaron Rodgers is getting. But $50 million more guaranteed than Rodgers is getting.
Money.
$90 million over the Patrick Mahomes guaranteed contract. Which now I'm reading and hearing that they're going to have to rework because they put themselves in such cap hell. And that's where I want to take this. Matt Stafford just got a new contract. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started. 4 years, $160 million. Okay. They did that quick because they did not want to get caught up in the new negotiations that would surround this. But what about these teams, you guys? So we have Rodgers, you have Watson, and you have Matt Stafford getting new contracts. You know who's up for a new contract next year? Russell Wilson, who wants to be the highest paid player in the league. You know who else wants a new contract? Little Mr. Kyler Murray down in Arizona, who wants to be one of the highest paid players in the league. So what this is going to do, you're going to have all these. What happens when they have to redo Joe Burrow's contract? What if he goes back to another Super Bowl, AFC Championship? Hell, does well in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen to these teams when these quarterbacks come up and say, "Oh, Dana, to the team, to Dana, I want it fully guaranteed. I understand you might not be able to give me that much money, but I want it fully guaranteed." Is this now the norm for quarterbacks?
Yep.
Lisa, you're the quarterback.
Of course it is. Absolutely. Of course it is. They're the leader of the team. They're generals. So it always makes sense. I mean, to me, it's look at New England. Look at a franchise guy. When you get a good quarterback, look what happened. So, I mean, I still think they're still going to be the highest paid person on the team. The running backs came close that a couple, about 10, 15 years ago, the running backs started coming close. Then they died off and we were, it just circled right back around. It cycles right back around. In order to win in the Super Bowl, unless you're the Baltimore Ravens with that fluke with Dofer that one year where they had such a strong defense. Yeah, that doesn't count. But, to do it repeatedly year after year. I mean, Jim Kelly with Buffalo Bills 4 years in a row. Dan Marino, I mean, took us to a Super Bowl, but he took us to the playoffs and championship games almost every year. So
it's a different world then, though, Lisa.
I know.
They're not giving 30% of their cap to their quarterback. And I agree, a quarterback should be the highest paid player on the team. I'm okay with that.
But we already talked about this cap. There's always ways to get around this cap. I'm totally convinced of that. I think the crap numbers are phantom numbers. I think there's always ways to get around the cap.
They're getting ready to raise it again.
Well, they'll raise it every year, and fine. And I'm all about players getting the right. You guys know I live and die. Go get your money. I'm all about that. But here's what happens. This is where I think I differ with Lisa. That dynasty in New England, Tom Brady was one of the most horrifically underpaid players in the league for years. He never got the money he should have got, ever. Why? Because he wanted to keep the team around him functional. What happens when you pay these quarterbacks ridiculous amounts of money and those other players want some money and then you lose them? The Rams are a good example. They're still negotiating with Aaron Donald, saying, what happens when Aaron Donald doesn't play for the Rams anymore? That team falls apart. I'm not kidding you. They already lost Von Miller, who we all thought
Matt Stafford got paid.
Yeah, fair. But
Stafford got paid.
And so that's what I'm saying is it's not that first year. It's the second year. It's the third year where they have to figure out. And I agree with Lisa, the cap is fake. It's not real. The cap, God love Rita. It's REETA. God love her. NFL chick, I think is what she goes by. I love her. And she said the cap's only real if you don't want to sign a player. If you do, you figure out.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
But the quarterback still should be your highest paid player on the team.
I'm fine with that. But it's the fully guaranteed. It's the 25 to 30% of your cap. So you look at some of these people who've been to the Super Bowl lately. Joe Burrow, rookie contract. Patrick Mahomes went to the Super Bowl twice, rookie contract. Russell Wilson, when he went to the Super Bowl twice, rookie contract.
Yeah, but he played on his rookie contract. So doesn't that prove that they've proven themselves? They went on a rookie contract. Now pay me because I already showed you I can take you to a championship. I can take you to the playoffs. Now show me the money.
Right. And how many go back? Because now there's no money to cover the rest of the team, and they can't afford to have a team, and they don't go back.
Because they can't do it all. And again, that's why that Bill Belichick, Tom Brady model was brilliant for so long, is because Tom Brady said, I want a legacy. I want to win championships. I don't care about my pocketbook. We are past that with most of these players. So I think that over the next few years, we're going to see the teams that go far in the playoffs are going to be the teams that have rookie quarterbacks. I think that's going to be huge. I don't know. It's crazy. All right, let's move on. So we're going to do our last little segment. Okay. Surprise. Other than Deshaun Watson.
Karen.
Free agent signing, our biggest surprise. I'm going to go ahead and start if you guys are okay with that. My biggest surprise was Von Miller. I thought for sure he was going back
You
to the
took mine.
Rams. Oh, I'm sorry. It was so surprising though,
It
Sonia,
was.
wasn't it?
It was.
I thought for sure he
Are
was
we
going
talking
back to the
about,
Rams.
are we
Why
talking
wouldn't
this
he?
week or last week or just like all around?
What? All around.
Are we
All
talking
around.
this?
Doesn't have to be.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so him going to the Bills, because you know I do love myself some Buffalo Bills. They were going to be the team I was switching to if Seattle had gotten Deshaun Watson, by the way. But so
What about loyalty? Loyalty. We got me and Sonia, at least, because I know what Watson take out of the Browns, but me and Sonia, we got the Lions and the Fins.
I would have cheered for you, Lisa.
All right.
I love the Bills, but here's the thing: him not going back. I realized it was but I found it interesting because he was talking about wanting to go back to Denver, and then that stopped the minute they got Russell Wilson, which is a whole sub theory on Seahawks Twitter right now, which is hilarious if you want to read through it. But it's like a subreddit, like there's all these things about, Von Miller heard Russell Wilson was like, I'm out. So anyway, but so then, but him going to the Bills, I thought it was great, but it's such a departure. He's going to the East Coast, totally different scheme. He really, really surprised me. So sorry I took yours, Sonia. I'll go to Lisa next so that you can think of another one.
Two. I'm going to do one. I'll do the single player. I think the single player, still my favorite one is Mitchell Trubisky to the Steelers. I'm in awe of that. I loved it. It's a no risk, no reward. Great pickup for the Steelers. He who were going to rely on Mason Rudolph. So I thought that was a hell of a move by the Steelers to pick him up. And then I'd like to do a team. I think the team that did great was the Bengals. The Bengals picking up those 3 offensive linemen. That just kind of shows you, I think as a team, I think the Bengals have done the best as far as their needs. They knew they had to stack that front. They brought in 3 new offensive linemen for that position. So the Bengals are positioning themselves for those big contracts coming up for Burrows and Chase. So I thought the Bengals as a team did the best. And my favorite signing is the Mitchell, which is Trubisky.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kate, what about you?
I'm kind of loving Mariota to Atlanta.
Really?
I find it interesting did I take yours too?
Poor Sonia.
Interesting that they're giving up on Matt Ryan and they're going with somebody who another guy who hasn't played in a while. He's been backing up in Vegas. And now he's going to walk in as the presumed starter for the Atlanta Falcons. I didn't think 18 million, I think, is what he's getting. I didn't think that was a bad number either for them to pay for him. So I was excited to see him get himself a deal. I was surprised to see the Saints re-signing Winston. I kind of thought they'd move on from him, but I think with their cap issues, they took a look at the market and stuff and figured, we'll just keep him and see what happens. Apparently the Taysom Hill experiment is over.
Yeah. Thank God.
Or they even said that. They said it's done. So, but Mariota, man, go ahead.
I was going to say, let me tell you something.
Mariota couldn't beat out Ryan Tannehill. Come on, really? Jesus.
So let me tell you something that's interesting. And we're going to do a cap. So next week we're doing a show about offensive linemen training for. It's going to be a great show. I really think you guys would like it. The next week we're going to tell you a whole show about the cap. The whole show about the cap. And our friend Miguel is going to go ahead and join us. The interesting thing, guess who has the most cap space right now? The Saints. They went from $70 million over the cap to 28 under. It's not real, people. The cap is not real. Okay, Sonia.
They're just unloading people. They haven't picked anybody up. They can't field a team right now, but they got money. They got cap space. Who needs a center? Centers are overrated.
Centers are overrated.
You got a good quarterback, he can hike the ball to himself.
Sonia, did you think of another one?
Winston, just run.
Yeah, here's actually a good one that I just came up
run.
with. The Chargers.
Okay.
The Chargers and Khalil Mack. I was very, very surprised by that one. But that was, I think, probably one of the more surprising ones that I thought. I thought that the Bears might try and keep him, but Hey, there you go. Chargers, I think, are going to be much improved.
Yeah. That AFC
They're gonna be
West is
scary.
gonna be
I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And you can see Patrick Mahomes going, and I have the O-line I have. And now I have all these players.
I don't know, Dana. The AFC North now has Mitchell Trubisky and Deshaun Watson. We might be making a move to be the best division. With Lamar and Joe Burrow, I don't know.
Oh my God. It's nuts, people. It's nuts. This is what happens. I'm telling
It's
you.
silly season.
It's crazy. Well, you guys, here's the thing. I love that we have a space here where we can tell our true feelings and what we think. And I think that's really important. And I think people appreciate that from us. We understand that, not everyone's going to agree with us, and we get that. And everyone's allowed to think what they want to think, as long as you don't, step on their toes and back and forth. So we appreciate all of that from all of our listeners. All right, everybody. Next week, we're here every Tuesday. I know other podcasts have taken the off season. I don't know how.
We're pounded. We're going through.
But we're here every Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So we hope that you'll be back and join us again. Next week, we have a special guest. Lisa, who's our guest next week?
It is going to be Miami Dolphins all-pro guard from the 1980s, 90s, 2000. Yeah. It'll be Richmond Webb. We're going to bring Richmond in there, one of my favorite guys. And we're going to talk about the offensive line, some plays, because we've got some issues along the lines of players who are, excel at one position, but for some reason coaches move them to another. So I'm going to go over some issues with him that some fans have talked to me about. So we're going to get his perspective on, moving around the line and, not playing these guys where they're comfortable.
Right. So I promised Big Red that we would answer his question very last as we get on our way out the door. And his question is, does Colin Kaepernick get a shot with all of the quarterback carousel? Real quick, yes or no? Sonia, you say no.
I say no. Too much of it's been too long, and no. Too much of a
Okay. Lisa?
I say no.
Okay. Kate?
Apparently, you can allegedly assault 22 women, but you can't stand up for social justice issues and play in the NFL. No.
Yeah. He should.
He did look good. He looked good in the workout, though.
He absolutely should.
He absolutely 100% should. Sadly, I don't think he will, because now what they'll use against him is the fact that he hasn't played in 5 years. Was that his fault? No. But he's going to be punished for that. So I think.
And from a health standpoint, he's probably in better shape than other quarterbpquarterbacks his age, because nobody has hit him in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
He looked good.
Katie says, our friend Katie, she says, Tyler believes. Yes, Tyler Lockett believes he wants him in Seattle. So. All right, everybody. We will be back next Tuesday night. We hope that you join us then. And we hope that everyone stays safe and had a great week. Good night, everybody.